What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt here, NJ.com. Latest episode of the No Huddle Show. We're here at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. I'm here with Mike Kaye. Eagles just got absolutely destroyed by the Saints. They lost 48-7, and it never looked particularly close. Everything that's been going wrong was exacerbated over the course of 4 quarters. And, you know, we won't go too much into the weeds with this game. We will talk about everything that happened, but just the general thing is, like, this is bad. This is as bad as they've been since Doug Pederson has been coach here, really. There's not much reason for optimism besides the fact that they technically can still make something happen in the NFC East. But I don't come out of this game feeling very good that they can. Like, at a certain point, you have to just be like, all right, let's stop talking about the division. Let's talk about week to week. Can they even beat the Giants next week? I'm not 100% convinced based on all the injuries they've suffered that that's a certainty. So I thought they were going to lose by a lot today. I predicted they would lose by multiple touchdowns. They wound up losing by more than multiple touchdowns, if that's a thing. And I just come away with this thinking that something's wrong in that locker room, something's wrong with that coaching staff. You can blame injuries, but it's more than that.
Yeah, it definitely extends beyond injuries. This offense, you look at the starters that they have coming into this season, really they're banged up at the tackle spots, but you're putting them out there, so that's a coaching decision. That's a front office decision. Jason Kelce went down early in this game, but really, who are you missing? Now that
on offense, you're not missing anybody. That's the problem here. Like, the offense isn't scoring, and it's not because of injuries.
Right. I mean, you can point to injuries. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you want to find excuses, you're not going to find a lot on offense. You're just not. This offense is not good. It's just not. And realistically, you should be with Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate, Zach Ertz, Nelson Aguilar, Goddard, now the emergence of Josh Adams. There is absolutely no reason why you should be blown out.
There should be a top half offense in the NFL.
They scored 7 points, Zach. They
Unreal.
scored 7 points.
Unreal.
And that was only because Josh Adams had one really great run. Who we'll talk about a little bit more in the program because we always have to.
Josh Adams would be our only positive thing in this
I was
podcast.
Thinking I wanted to write I wanted to tweet this out. I really want to write a Studs and Duds column for tomorrow, but I feel like it would just be Josh
Duds
Adams.
And Stud.
Yeah, it would just be like Josh Adams and my overwhelming love for, like, Cameron Johnston, maybe. I mean, freaking Jake Elliott had the easiest day ever. Like,
he didn't even attempt a field goal, right?
Yeah, he had one kickoff.
Well, they didn't even get into the red zone until the very end.
Kickoffs. Yeah.
And then Carson Wentz threw a pick. We're going to get pretty critical about Carson Wentz today. We'll get to that in a bit. But
this was the worst performance of Carson's career.
Not even. There's not even a debate about that.
I don't think it's like I thought about it like when I was writing and I was against the heat of the gun going off. It definitely is worse than the last 2 seasons. But rookie year, considering what he had to deal with and how he was thrust in the lineup, yeah, in context,
it's all relative to the context that you're in.
Right.
Yeah.
This was terrible. This was bad. Wide receivers and tight ends were having trouble getting open and running routes and stuff like that, but
his passes were not on the money.
Yeah, he just looked off. He looked very frustrated. And I think, overall, this lack of running game support is kind of self-induced. They don't let anybody really find a rhythm. Like, Corey Clement will run for 4 yards, and then you don't see him again for, like a quarter. Josh Adams.
They got down so big so quickly that they were going to abandon the run. Like, you could just see it coming from a mile away.
Well, sure.
That's the way they go about this. But maybe they shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I mean, look.
When your passing game's not working, give the ball to Josh Adams. Give the ball to Josh Adams 20 times if you have to.
They scored a 28-yard touchdown on a run, and then they forced a 3-and-out against the Saints. And then you come back and what do you do? Nothing.
Literally the rest of the game.
Yeah, this was... Coaches and players like to say, throw away the tape. Like, that's a term they use. I would light this tape on fire, throw it into the Delaware River.
Just leave it on the ground in Bourbon Street. Some weird stuff will happen to it.
Like, this is a game that, as a writer and as somebody who covers the team, it's really hard to... Other than completely just crap all over the performance, it's really hard to take anything away from it because they were beaten so badly. It wasn't like there was a decision here or there that you could really pinpoint. There wasn't like one performance, hey, this guy needs to get better. This entire team got trounced today. This was an overall collective mishap by this team. If you come out of this game praising anybody more than maybe Josh Adams, who? You got Trey Sullivan having penalties every 6 seconds. You've got Carson Wentz throwing 3 interceptions. Zach Ertz was barely involved.
2 catches for 15 yards. This was the first game where he didn't have an impact.
He's tied for 4th now on the Eagles' all-time receptions list with Brent Selleck.
Oh, your boy.
Not that you care, but yeah, just overall, this was not a good game. They tried to get Golden Tate involved early, and it just... I don't think Wentz and him have chemistry yet. And, it's 2 weeks, so you can't really...
One of Wentz's interception, the second one, in the second half, he, scrambled. He, was pointing to Golden Tate to, get open or something. And he just, I don't know if Tate didn't go where he thought he was going, or Wentz just completely mistimed or missed through it because it was a really bad throw. It was picked off pretty easily. The game started turning really on Wentz's first interception, probably. That was in the first quarter.
Not really. They had 2 2-and-outs and then an interception, so they had 7
2
plays.
3-and-outs. I don't know what a 2-and-out is.
Yeah, 2-and-out.
The 2-and-out was the interception one, actually.
No, it was a 1-and-out. Yeah, but... So, basically, they had 2 3-and-outs and an interception. That's 7 plays in the first 3 drives. You're not going to win with that, because the Saints built a 17-point lead and never looked back. They were also dancing on the sideline. This place is loud.
Oh, my God, yeah.
We should acknowledge that we're also still at the Superdome, where there's...
In an open press box.
In an open press box. There's kids playing on the field. I'm pretty sure they've just scored 14 points on the Eagles' defense.
They're still scoring somehow.
Right.
The game's over, and now they're still scoring.
The Eagles aren't even in the building. But yeah,
that flight home is going to be pretty quiet.
Pretty quiet, yeah. I thought, if you've been following me on Twitter, you know that my travel plans were horrific on Saturday. This game was somehow worse. We won't dwell too much. Let's keep talking about Carson Wentz a little bit more. Yeah, let's talk about Carson.
The last few weeks, he's had it where he's either started off really poorly. He's mostly started off poorly, or he ended the game poorly. This game, it was just the same thing for 4 quarters. Specifically the first quarter, we can harp on it every week, and we kind of have to because they're not good enough to fall behind teams anymore. And I went back the last 4 games and found Carson Wentz's stats for the first quarter.
Nice.
He's thrown a 48.4 completion percentage, less than 50% of his passes, 182 passing yards. The yardage isn't really that important. 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles, 1 of them lost. So he's turned the ball over 4 times in the last 4 first quarters. They've been outscored quite a bit. The play calling clearly is an issue. Those scripted plays just aren't working. You can almost tell. It's almost like clockwork. They get past that stretch of the game and then they make a big play. I think the touchdown drive might have come right after that.
Mm-hmm. I asked Doug Pederson about that. So while we're still talking about that,
yeah,
I said normally you guys are able to start slow and then you turn it around. And Pederson just had no answer. He doesn't know what the problem is. It was another one of those, we need to look in the mirror.
I know. If he says that one more time.
How many mirrors do you own in your house, Doug Pederson? The problem...
I could reference Skyscraper again, but I won't.
Please
there's
don't.
a big mirror scene. Big mirror scene.
2 and 2 podcasts.
There was a whole room of mirrors. A whole room.
Look.
Okay, sorry.
Carson, and I thought this for a little bit, Carson plays well when he's just flowing through the offense. He's not a guy you can kind of choreograph, if that makes sense. He's a playground ball sort of guy.
He's better when he's improvising.
Right. Brett Favre, Russell Westbrook. Those guys aren't script guys. Those are guys...
We haven't seen that much. That first 2 games he came back, he was doing a lot of that. He was scrambling. He hasn't been running very much.
Right.
Which is fine.
They did do a design run.
They did, and he gained 8 yards, I think. But, yeah, you keep going, but the improvisation, that was his MO last year, and
right.
It's weird. Last year it seemed like every game he was getting better, and it's no, there's no way he can keep getting better, and he kept getting better. This year it's he's going down. He's not making the adjustments week to week. I don't know if it's something going on in the week of preparation. I don't know if it's a miscommunication between him and his weapons, but the whole thing last year was even just look at him and Alshon Jeffrey. The whole thing was all right, they weren't on the same page yet, but give them some time, they're going to be great. Alshon Jeffrey's been MIA the last couple weeks. I don't know if it's his fault or if it's Carson Wentz's. And people are hesitant to blame Carson Wentz a lot of times in this town, and I get it. He's the franchise quarterback. Everybody loves the guy. He's going to be a really good quarterback for a very long time, but everybody has to take a step back and realize that there's a lot of blame that falls on his shoulders.
Yeah, and I asked him about that as well, and he told me he takes a lot of blame, but he still uses the term we. And I find that I don't want to say it becomes disingenuous when you say when you
keep deflecting to we instead of saying I.
No, he'll go, I take a lot of responsibility. We just didn't make a lot of plays. No, Carson, you didn't make a lot of plays. Sure, the offense as a collective whole did not make a lot of plays, but I specifically asked, I said, Carson, you keep bringing up that it starts with you. If it starts with you, how much ownership do you take in these early struggles? I never said anything about the group. I don't think Carson has an accountability issue. I just think sometimes I don't want to put words in his mouth and I don't want to press on what I think. But I think that Carson sometimes gets in his own head. About the playbook, about being a leader, about... he was clearly frustrated in this game. And I think this is the first time in this press conference setting after a game that he really took responsibility for stuff, but even then he waned and said we and stuff. Carson's a very large part of the reason they lost this game. He's been a very large part of the reason why they've lost a couple of games. Enough with the excuses. The guy has a former Pro Bowl wide receiver, a superstar tight end. They traded for another Pro Bowl wide receiver. The
best offensive line in the league, in air quotes, because that's what everybody told us coming into this year.
Right. I mean, look, there's nothing really changed except for positives.
They've added. If anything, they've lost Jay Ajayi, but like Josh Adams looks like he can give you the same production.
And Jay Ajayi was a complimentary piece last year. Let's not
but he's better than all the other running backs they have.
Correct.
That's not really if we're talking about how they're taking a step back, that's the only area you can really. That's all I'm saying. That's the only spot you can say that.
I got to tell you, Nick Foles had similar struggles to start the year that Carson Wentz is having this year. Carson Wentz is way more accurate, don't get me wrong. Carson's way more athletic.
Dynamic and all that, yeah.
Yeah, but they're both not seeing the field very well, it seems, at really inopportune times. I mean, it's never opportunistic to not see. It's just there's something rhythmically off about them. And Carson got a little careless with the football, it seemed like, towards the end of the game. That first interception wasn't a bad read. Some people said that they thought that he just chucked it. That was a good read. And, look, sometimes the game doesn't go your way, but this really didn't go their way. Like, they showed no urgency coming out of the gate. They got off to a snail's pace. And then they got their asses kicked. I mean, really, that's what it is. They all realized how
the Saints might win the Super Bowl. Like, this is a legit team.
I think the Saints have to be the favorite right now. The Saints and the Chiefs would be the two teams.
I think the Saints have I texted this to somebody. The Saints have a feel like the Eagles did last year, where everything's rolling. They have a swagger to them. They're celebrating everything. Their offenses, even
Stephen Wisniewski said.
I think it was Lane Johnson also said. Like you look over there and you kind of remind yourself of how our offense looked last year.
Right.
Like you have a quarterback who's firing on all cylinders. You have, they have ridiculous talent at running back. They have Michael Thomas, who's better than anyone the Eagles have on offense. But the point being, like everything's rolling. Like this is probably the best Saints game they've had in terms of the offense and the defense working together, because the Saints defense has struggled at times this year, and maybe it's not saying much against the Eagles at this point because their offense is one of the worst in the NFL scoring wise.
Mm-hmm. And you can't just say, oh, they can only beat you in the Superdome. They just blew out the Bengals and embarrassed them.
Yeah.
So.
The Eagles and Saints are on different trajectories right now, and where their franchises are, and it's a weird thing to say considering the Eagles just won the Super Bowl, and we all kind of thought they were going to be competing for them for a few years, and now you kind of have to take a step back and look at if that's the case anymore.
Let's talk about why. Are you ready for it, Zachy?
Don't call me Zachy.
Yeah, well, you got called Zachy. This team has continually, and rightfully so in some aspects, tried to jumpstart this offense around Carson Wentz because they realize Carson Wentz is about to get paid a $1 billion.
He's eligible at the end of the season.
Right. And so now's the window to pay guys short-term, whatever.
Trade for someone like Golden Tate.
Trade for someone. You do all these nifty moves or whatever. They've completely ignored this defense. Now, credit to Howie. I mean,
the injuries to the. Before you keep going, I think I need to address all the injuries that happened tonight in the secondary.
Yeah, so
they went into the game without Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills. Ronald Darby's out for the season. Rodney McLeod is also out for the season, but cornerback is the bigger concern right now. I have it in my head. So, and then in the first half, Avonte Maddox hurt his knee. It looked pretty bad. They declared him out fairly quickly.
Yeah, it was a non-contact.
The second half, Rasul Douglas went down with a knee injury. That left them with Shandon Sullivan, Devontae Bosby, and Crayvon LeBlanc as their three cornerbacks. Those three guys weren't on the roster in Week 8. As recent as Week 8, none of those guys were on the team. And a couple of them weren't on any team.
You look at the secondary in general.
I get that the defense, they've had a lot of issues, and Jim Schwartz has done some strange things this season. But the fact that I don't know what their ranking is going to be after this game, scoring defense-wise, you kind of have to throw this one out. But the fact that he had them where they were, considering all these... I mean, Jordan Hicks hurt his calf near the end of the game. The dude's played almost every single snap this season.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. I didn't realize that.
He had played every snap until
every snap, which, I mean, they don't really have the depth at linebacker either to play anybody else. So, you talked... I mean, we entered the season, cornerback was viewed as like such a strong suit that they were willing to trade Ronald Darby. Like that was the storyline before the season. They brought in Darryl Worley in the offseason. They're like, how are they going to play this guy? They have so many guys. He wound up getting drunk and driving and got cut. And now all of a sudden they like miss the days of Darryl Worley being here. Like it's and then, I mean we've talked plenty about. You're probably about to touch on this. The defensive tackle depth. I mean defensive end really. They haven't had anybody since they've had some injuries. I mean what was that the direction you were going?
Yeah, this is...
Howie's decision-making has been weird.
It's not just Howie's decision-making. I mean, it's overall... They were reluctant to put Rasul Douglas out there until they absolutely needed him, and he's just...
And then he wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready. They've really hampered everything that Malcolm Jenkins does well by prioritizing certain positions over the other. The linebacker group is just paper thin. They've gotten really lucky not to have injuries there. Tim Jernigan is such a massive loss that they did not plan. They really did not plan well for.
The thing is, they signed Haloti Ngata after they already knew about Tim Jernigan's injury, so that just makes it even more confusing to me.
I mean, look, here's the thing: you're not playing Madden. All these guys aren't imaginary. I mean, like aren't out there. They're not.
Yeah,
like, you can't just sign anybody.
You can't just sign any guy.
Right.
They could have brought Bo Allen back though.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they traded for Golden Tate as opposed to
getting us somebody on defense.
Yeah, I mean it's hindsight's 2020. But we've always said,
and we were like, all right, he'll help what they need, but I think we all kind of felt like they had other needs more than receiver
for sure. And I mean, I don't know who was actually available. It seemed like there were quite a few corners that might have been available. I don't know, dude. Like this is one of those things where it's like you're just trying to find that. Hopefully you could hear that snap, where you get that jump start for the offense, and they thought that Tate was that guy. I don't think, in fairness, Robbie Anderson would have been that guy. I don't think there's anybody who's going to fix this offense other than maybe Doug Pederson. And it's really not starting to look very good for Mike Rowe right now. Mike Rowe does not make the play calls.
He's an easy scapegoat.
Right. Mike Rowe does not make the play calls. He does not do the in-game substitutions.
What does he do?
but he does work with the planning and the preparation.
And that goes into the first 15 play thing.
And, Jeff Stoutland's the run game coordinator. You've got Deuce Staley. I got to tell you, they really, for having your own run game coordinator, they really don't use that coordinator all that much.
You did some air quotes there, by the way. People couldn't hear you.
Yeah, you need to know that. You didn't hear the whoosh. This defense is so much better coached than the offense right now, and the fact that I'm not like a Jim Schwartz like Mark or whatever. Like I'm not like a guy who thinks, oh my god, if they get rid of Jim Schwartz, they're
gonna
screwed.
die.
But like the amount of criticism and critique that Jim Schwartz gets with the injuries that he's dealt with in the secondary and up front, and like where they are, this is the first game where I've been like, wow, Jim Schwartz coached a terrible game.
Yeah.
His defense
or he was out-coached at least.
Oh, for sure. Well,
yeah.
I mean, Sean Payton does that. But,
yeah.
I mean, like...
Sean Payton even said something about how over the last 2 years, they played more man coverage tonight than he had seen in the last 2 years, and it kind of makes sense. They kind of had to, really.
Right, and look, you're going up against. Look, I think Kamara is a top 5 running back in this league. I think Mike Thomas is a top 3 wide receiver in this league. Drew Brees is going to win the MVP award. I'm pretty sure.
It's him or Mahomes. I would vote Brees personally. But
I would vote Brees.
But the problem, I mean, this is a different discussion, but it's always relative to expectations with those awards, which I'm not sure that's how it should be. But yeah, anyway, keep going.
This team's a juggernaut.
They're good,
I could see the Chiefs falling flat on their faces eventually just because of the inexperience. This Saints team is scary. And, when you're able to take the defending champions and throw them away like tissue paper, it's just... I don't know who's going to beat this team. Like in a playoff setting, they look better than the Eagles did last year. If I can say that, I'm sure we'll get comments about it. But send us your comments, by the way. We'd love to read them.
Tell Mike how dumb he is.
Right. Look, I'm rambling and doing all this stuff, but I think the bottom line is you can definitely not feel good about this offense, and maybe it takes till next year to fix it, but. There is a disconnect. And I also think there's somewhat of a disconnect between what the front office wants to do and what the actual coaching staff wants to do. Because to have Rasul Douglas not play half the season, then you throw him out there and put him in harm's way after selecting him with a third-round pick a couple of years ago.
It's just a bad way to approach development.
Sheldon Gibson's never out there, even though he's like...
Does he exist anymore?
Yeah, who knew?
I saw him in the locker room. I was like, oh,
yeah,
he does
I did too.
exist.
I was like, I wonder what he could say. But what would he have to say, honestly? They've done a good job and a bad job of promoting practice squad talent. And hats off to them for...
You shouldn't have to rely on those guys as much as they have.
Right. But, there isn't like an unlimited resource of safeties and corners.
Well, yeah, but they put themselves in that position by relying on Corey Graham as your main safety.
And they've also watched
backup.
these corners and safeties in practice and feel comfortable enough with them. So one could say maybe that's a failure on their part. But, again... This team, you got Trayvon Hester was on the practice squad.
He's starting now.
Bruce Hector, who's been around on and off the practice squad. Busby on the practice squad. Bowsby.
You're going to get it right one day.
Bowsby, who's been on the practice squad the last 2 years. Shandon Sullivan, who's been on the practice squad, was on the practice squad up until he was promoted before the Jags game. Trey Sullivan was on the practice squad for 2 years. Crevon LeBlanc was
cut by the Lions. They threw Dexter McDougal in the starting lineup after signing him.
Right. Look, this is not the way a playoff team operates. But then again, what do you do now? If Rasul Douglas is out and Avonte Maddox, who in my opinion is the story of the year on defense because of how well he's played. He's the only player on the defense that has multiple turnovers.
Might have been a serious injury.
I mean, it looked
we don't know yet,
awful. It looked awful because he just
whenever
fell.
A guy is declared out immediately, that's how you know.
Yeah, he was out. I saw Rasul in the locker room. Didn't get to talk to him.
Yeah, I know. He wasn't wearing like a brace or anything.
I didn't see a brace. I mean,
but again,
Darby,
you never
I saw
know
him wearing a brace immediately. If the constantly injured man Jordan Hicks can't play, then you're playing a lot of Camus and you're playing a lot of Nigel Brown.
And you're welcoming a Giants team to home. The Giants have won 2 in a row. The Eagles have lost 3 in a row at home. They have Odell Beckham Jr.,
right.
They have Sterling Shepard, they have Evan Ingram, and they have Saquon Barkley. Like, who's covering these guys?
You remember how?
Are you and I going on to cover them? Because I haven't played corner in my life. So
you remember how the Redskins, Giants, and Cowboys fans used to mock Eagles fans for never winning a Super Bowl? Now they can mock them for being the only team in the NFC East that hasn't won 2 games in a row. I mean, put that in perspective. This is a Super Bowl.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. The Eagles are only a game ahead of the Giants right now.
And on top of that, the Eagles are just a game back of the Cowboys and 2 games back of the Red.
Who just lost Alex Smith. What a bad division. My God.
Division.
The Cowboys might be my pick right now to win the division.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys are probably your best bet.
Because, they have tiebreakers. They have everybody healthy.
I think it would actually be pretty opportunistic for the Eagles to have them win that, because then you keep the clapper.
True. Yeah, it's like the randomly. It's like how Eli Manning, the Eagles, he played really well against them last year, and that's why the Giants brought him back. So it was like the Eagles did that for them.
See, I think the Eagles need to get themselves in a position where they can get to at least 8-8 to feel good about the offseason moving forward.
I have them going 7-9. Looking at the rest of the schedule,
7-9's probably good.
I mean, so they have the Giants this week. I think they're going to win, but I'm less convinced from when I wrote that to now.
So what do you have? Giants?
I have them beating losing to the Cowboys on the road. I have them beating
the Redskins twice.
Redskins at home and on the road, and
so the Giants
losing to the Rams, losing to the Texans.
I mean, look, this is one of those seasons where it just kind of feels like everything's falling apart. You do have some built-in injury excuses. Hopefully, they can get a lot of these older dudes off the books next year, and you can kind of develop your own talent. I've always said, and I think I brought this up on the program before, when you have a lackluster draft class, you don't get immediately impacted by it, but you lose out in the second year because your depth is kind of squashed. Outside of Barnett, that draft class is not looking very good.
Sidney Jones, I forgot to mention him earlier. He also left the game early with a hamstring. That dude can't stay healthy, and he didn't look very good when he was in the game.
Yeah, they're going to probably end up starting Camus at
I didn't even think he was playing DB, and maybe Nate Gary.
Yeah, Nate Gary's out there playing safety. Man. This is just...
it's a mess.
It's hard to, because that's the thing. Before this game, it was really hard to criticize them completely because they'd never been blown out, and they
were still keeping games close, which is why, there's been the, what's the carrot stick? Somebody holding the carrot out in front of them
it has been a stakes in front of you, and you're like, I'm on this treadmill, but, I'm going to get that ribeye.
Now it's like they fell on their face.
Yeah. Look, here, if you want to take away a positive from all of this, the Giants have impacted their draft position. The Redskins, Alex Smith, man, that's a tough deal, and they have been banged up all year. It's going to keep Jay Gruden in the division. The Cowboys don't look good. They kind of squeak their way past the Falcons. If you want to hold out hope for this division, you still can until they play the Giants. But if they lose to the Giants, this is done. Just call it.
They don't tank in the NFL, but tank for a pick.
Unless you're the Browns.
Yeah,
Condoleezza Rice.
Man, that was...
Holla at your boy.
We can. The day started with a Condoleezza Rice rumor, and we'll end it with one. How about that? We need a new rumor, I guess.
Maybe she knows what's wrong with the offense.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We should call her. Okay, Condi, tell us your thoughts. Come on to the No Huddle Show. We'd happily have Condoleezza Rice on the No Huddle Show.
Sometimes I'm missing her like Condi, but
final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts are the Eagles are in dire straits on offense. Defense, they're just really banged up. I don't think Jim Schwartz has called bad games outside of this one. He's had bad moments in other games that have cost them late. Yeah. But everybody does.
Do you think they make a coaching change this week? Do you think they do it during the season? Do you think they do it during the season?
I don't know, but this is...
if a lot of times, I don't know if it's necessarily the right move, but teams do that to, all right, we're holding you guys accountable for the way this is happening. You just cost somebody their job. Now go out there and prove that.
So I brought up Corey Unland's name without bringing up the point. Corey Unland's been stuck with such a terrible... streak of injuries. He's probably safe. You're not going to fire the linebackers coach midseason. I don't know what good that does you. Chris Wilson, I don't know. They didn't even touch Drew tonight. That might be an interesting one. On offense...
Mike Groh is the obvious one on offense.
Right, but you don't...
But he's Doug's guy.
But he's also not a guy that calls plays, so it's to fire him mid-season, what does that do? Just strip him from his preparation responsibilities and have him, talk to wide receivers or something.
Or involve him more. Maybe the problem is that Doug's too hands-on. I don't know.
I don't know, but I know the heat's coming for Groh this week.
The heat.
If I know this beat group. Press Taylor, a guy that you and I have been very impressed with.
Yeah, the quarterbacks haven't improved. It's hard to blame. I don't know. It's hard to blame a guy like that.
I don't know. I do think
they missed DeFilippo more than it's Taylor's fault.
Yeah, not to put too much. Not to steal a line from Doug himself, but I really do think Doug needs to look in the mirror when it comes to his play calling.
Oh my God.
He really he does. This is a bad string of his last 3 starts to games have been the 3 worst starts I've seen from an Eagles coach in a really long time. Chip never had this bad of starts. Andy sure as hell didn't. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things, man. I don't remember John Gruden having really bad starts. Then again, I was like 7, so,
All right.
But anyway, on that note...
John Gruden ruins everything, so let's end on that note.
Hey, Derek Carr.
Oh, my God.
On that note, let's cue the music. What do you got for him?
What do I got? All right. If you guys made it this far without getting too angry, make sure you follow us, subscribe. We're on all the podcast apps. As I always tell you, we're on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud. Leave a comment. We'll read it out. We're going to do a midweek pod this week. We're going to get back into that mix. There's a lot to talk about. Thanks for listening, guys.